Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us here today. Hopefully, you are dialing in from a place in the world that's a little bit warmer than where I am. I'm looking at many inches of snow right in front of me. I'm based in New York. My name is Evan Wong. If you've never met me before, I am the co-founder and CEO of Checkbox. Really excited for today's webinar that is all about when a legal front door becomes essential. And we're going to be talking about Hitachi's journey on their legal front door. And with me to do that, a very special guest, Janine Moran. So welcome, Janine, to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, Evan.
So Janine here you're based out of Colorado, right?
I am. We don't have any snow. We did have some snow earlier. They had that cold, but right now the snow has melted. I'm looking outside my window, and we're getting like 40 degrees. So pretty
Oh, wow.
decent for
That's
winter.
pretty decent.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and Janine here is the director of legal operations, but also, AI technology and automation at Hitachi. So she really has a really broad remit across bringing in all sorts of technology innovation across legal. And maybe we can start there, Janine. Before we dive into the legal front door, why don't you tell everyone today, set the scene. How big is the Hitachi business? How big is the legal team? Like, what does legal operations look like at Hitachi?
Sure. Let's do that. I am the legal and compliance operations director at Hitachi Digital, which is one of our group family companies. It's a parent company to a bunch of subsidiaries. I'm also the legal ops director for Hitachi Americas Limited. Ultimately, Digital also rolls up to Hitachi Americas. The Hitachi Digital legal team is 60, around 60, primarily attorneys around the globe that we support. And then Hitachi Americas has a team of around 10. So that's kind of the size of the
Hmm.
operations that I personally support around the globe.
Yeah, okay. So a pretty decently sized team spread across different, sub businesses of Hitachi and geographies as well. So not simple by any means. Like, what did I guess legal work look like before you put in a front door, right? Like, paint us the picture of,
Yeah.
what was life like? And maybe what was the catalyst that got you thinking, maybe we actually do need a legal front door? Because I know that you had other technologies in place already. I think you had like a CLM, that's quite great, and like other compliance related tools as well. Like, what was life like prior to the front door, and what led you to saying this is the next tech that we need in place?
Yeah, it's a really good starting point. Hitachi grows primarily through acquisition. That's our largest growth strategy. Of course, we have
Mm,
organic growth, but it's largely. And originally, we in legal and compliance sat with the business in one of the subsidiaries, right? We were embedded in with the business. And as we continued to grow and we formed Hitachi Digital as our parent company, it was around the same time that we acquired Global Logic. And Global Logic have 30,000 employees around the globe. Like it's a
mm,
big company. And it was around that time that legal and compliance, our general counsel, Chris Leslie, he rather than keeping us embedded with the business and maybe desegregated, he brought us up to that parent company level at Hitachi Digital, and we provide shared services, legal and compliance shared services, to all of our subsidiaries and also some other group Hitachi Group company families. And so we sit together and provide shared services.
mm,
And it introduced a new challenge for us. It was so much easier. So we had a fragmented legal intake system. That's what I'm going to call it. When we were in as part of the business, email requests came in, legal requests came in via Slack or Teams, came in through shared inboxes, personal inboxes. We sometimes got, the telephone call and, I need help. We also had office walk-bys, if you were hybrid or in the office walk-bys. We did have a ticketing system. We
Mm,
initially tried with ServiceNow, so we also had that to manage. But ultimately, it was so fragmented. It came in like in all of those above ways, and for us, it was chaotic. It was difficult to manage. We really had no visibility. They were, in people's buried in people's inboxes. People's inbox became their to-do list for the day. So we had
mm,
no visibility. It was hard to measure, hard to scale, and that really made it difficult also for any kind of capacity planning. And that was really the impetus around that point. Was strategically we realized what we needed was one easily accessible, super intuitive, really easy place that became our one-stop legal shop. That as we acquired more companies and more people joined the Hitachi family, we could plug them in.
mm. You've articulated so well, I think, the problems that we hear every single day from legal teams all around the world. Like it's this multi-channel kind of flurry of legal requests that vary from prioritization to size of work to size of risk to specialization. And as you said, like it kind of just comes in like a queue in all these different mediums, and it's just like a really hard way to get control over it all. And I think a lot of people underestimate just how much productivity drag that has on the legal department, and as well as the business who's waiting to actually get the legal service that they're coming for. So then tell me a little bit about uh like what it looked like after, like what was your vision if that was kind of the state beforehand. And by the way, I find it very fascinating, like you have all these businesses rolling up to a shared service. It's almost like a forcing function to say, well, we can't rely on previous business embedded partnerships anymore. Like we need to have a systematic way for people to find legal, especially as I assume new people are constantly joining the business and they don't have those relationships, and that's not great for scale. So that forcing function. But tell me a bit about like what was your vision then, to solve this?
Yeah, what we really wanted was like a super friendly digital. I'm going to call it a digital portal
Okay.
that we could design in a way to position it as an extension of the legal
Mm,
team. Think of it as your, um, a digital version of the legal team. And we
mm,
really worked hard. I think our general counsel worked really hard on building a culture of service within our team. And what we wanted was this to be an extension of the legal team, really to carry that persona of it being service oriented. What we didn't want it to be perceived as like just yet another IT system that the business had to learn how to use. We really wanted it to be inviting, engaging, easy to use, and most importantly, get them to where they need. Give them the answers really quickly and get them to where they need to be as quickly as possible.
mm. That
That
you
was
make a
our,
really
that
good.
was our vision, right? It was like
Yeah.
the one-stop shop.
Okay. Like you raise a really good point, because I think a lot of legal teams are sometimes afraid to put in a solution like this because they're worried about that service quality, that relationship that might be lost that's been built over so many years. And I think one of the things that I've always found very impressive about you and how you kind of approach this is how you think about the technology being an extension, as you say, of the existing service. And we'll talk. I definitely want to ask you later on about how you think about storytelling and change management and branding, because I think you've done a phenomenal job at that. And we can talk about some of the adoption that you've gotten, because it's very, very impressive metrics. Um, but like a lot of teams tend to be scared that it creates like a wall between legal and the business. Did you feel that at all? Did you get that
Oh,
resistance within Hitachi when you pitched the idea of a legal front door?
100%. The
Yeah.
resistance is real.
Yeah.
And uh, you get it from the business and you get it from within legal. You
Mm,
actually get it on both sides.
mm,
And with the business, we reframed the value proposition about having a digital legal business partner that was available 24/7, right? That didn't need to sleep and eat and disconnect from work and have a life away from their laptop, right? It was available to you 24/7. We made it really easily accessible. We created a vanity URL. So they had just one URL, like one bookmark, one place to go, no matter what they needed in legal, right? Just one place to go. We reframed it with them in a way that you still have your legal business partner. And now, because you don't have to go to your legal business partner with every single question, and they did, every single question. Where do I find thee? Where is the policy on? Like every question imaginable, they would go to their legal business partner. And honestly, it didn't need a highly specialized, highly compensated attorney to be able to answer these questions. And so freeing the attorney up from a lot of that administrivia meant that they could be a better legal business partner, more strategic. So we kind of positioned that with the business. By the same token, I had to reframe it for the legal team. For the attorneys, they were really worried that the perception was a system was taking away from their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the truth is, I'll talk about the branding later, but the truth is, instead of taking the relationship out of, impacting the relationship by providing this service, what we did was we protected the attorney's time by taking the minutiae, the administration, the more mundane work out of the attorney's legal work day. So we were protecting their time, and that's how we positioned it. It was actually strengthening the relationship by eliminating the busy work that an attorney doesn't need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. One funny analogy that I sort of came across about a year ago now is imagine you have like a kitchen with really highly specialized, talented Michelin star chefs. But you have these chefs also come out and take orders from people and they're like, oh, like, would you like sides of that and whatever? And they're running between the kitchen cooking whilst waitering. And that's obviously, that sounds silly to us, but that's kind of what legal departments are doing. Like the lawyers being the chefs are coming out, they're taking orders, they're trying to figure out, right? Like the intake process.
Right? So topping the water up, like they're doing it all.
Yeah, that's right.
Really good analogy, Evan.
Yeah. And so the legal front door is almost like as you say, it's like it's creating a way for the business to effectively get the requests in a very efficient manner, but also to direct them to the right place and maybe even create some automation to solve the low value repetitive work that doesn't actually need the highly specialized lawyer to solve. So like tell me a little bit about your front door now. Like we talked about your vision. What is it in reality? Like what do you have now as your legal front door at Hitachi?
So rather than our legal business partners now being answering machines and doc generation vending machines, right? Taking that work away from the attorney and bringing it into our legal front door. It means that we now have essentially all of our legal and compliance services in one place. And I want to talk just a little bit about the journey because, and it's still a journey, right? You're forever improving upon, like it's that whole concept of continuous improvement and building in more automation. What we started with was just a handful, a number of 3 apps that we wanted to prove the concept, but also I would consider it low-hanging fruit, like those high volume work items that the business love. So things like that instant document generation, things like, business process workflow automations. Auto approvals are huge. The business love, getting those online approvals, things that are quick and easy, these quick wins. And that's where we really started. But what was amazing in our journey was, for various reasons, and part of this is because of Checkbox and the training and our implementation partner, we had Harbour. We really had a great design, and this was key. We had a great design. We had the Build As You Go training from Checkbox. It was exceptional. And this organic growth happened. It was amazing. The legal ops team, and I did hire an intern who was dedicated, who was our chief kind of builder, because we all have our day jobs, but that was key. We ended up turning out 12 solutions. We had planned for 3, and we ended up within more or less that same time frame. We ended up with 12 solutions, and that empowerment, it was truly special. And I think that not having to rely on IT or having bottlenecks, but really being able to take that ownership. The legal ops team are just, to me, they'll surprise you with what they can bring to the table.
That's such a powerful story. Like I always think about legal ops people, really great process thinkers, problem solvers, but often they hit a bit of a wall because they don't have always like the coding abilities that your IT counterparts might have or software developers might have, but you have the vision, you have the skill set, you have the domain expertise of the legal department. You just need like a tool that can unlock that creativity to turn it into, business value. And it's incredible that you plan for, did you say 3 or 4? You plan for 3 originally,
3.
3 workflows. You end up with 12. I mean, that's a 4x over expectation velocity, which usually when you think about implementations, they run long, not short. So that's really impressive. Can you share with us oh, sorry, go.
I was going to say, more often than not, implementations don't exceed expectations. Usually it's like you've got this huge vision of the world, right? And you think it's going to be great. And then for various reasons, bottlenecks, unplanned challenges come into play, and you end up launching with less than what you originally planned, or the timeline takes you so much longer for that same amount of scope. And I think that was what was really special, was we exceeded expectations. We implemented more than we planned with a really robust solution, exceeding expectations, which is almost counterintuitive to most tech implementations.
Yeah, wow. Well, hopefully you're not setting the expectation too high now for Checkbox, because the people on the call are gonna now expect 12 workflows, and we're only going to deliver 10, right? But let me ask you the question, because I think it's probably on people's minds. When you say 12 solutions, like what does that actually mean? Like I think a lot of people listening in today may not have seen Checkbox or used it. Like what is a solution? Give us maybe like there's 12. Maybe give us like an example of 3.
Okay, sure. For me, one solution was the legal front door, right? That was one of our solutions, and that was core to what we wanted to deliver. And I want you to think of legal front door as our connector app. It connects to other applications within Checkbox as well as external applications. It connects to AI agents. If you have a question, like think of it as it's your connector app, right? That was one. Another one we wanted was a doc generation. So we started with something simple like the NDA, and I say simple, but for us, prior to our becoming our transformation, we had a SharePoint site. You probably have all lived it. You've got the SharePoint site, you've got hundreds and hundreds of different templates. We have them by country, by contract type. We have translations, for those countries that required it. We literally had hundreds. And while the SharePoint was, accessible if they were able to like navigate through our intranet, find where they needed to go through the various folders and find their document and hope and pray they picked the right one. More often than not, what was happening was they were like, you know what, I'm just going to ask the counterparty. Just give us their paper. It's easier for me to go finding. And so, that was, I think, part of what we wanted to prove out, but we've since built upon it way beyond the NDA. But think of the instant NDA as a solution. So we have an instant NDA, we have an instant sales agreement, we have our legal front door, we have a bunch of compliance apps, we have a contract review app. I mean, the list goes on and on. For compliance, we implemented conflicts of interest was
Mm,
the conflicts of interest disclosure. That was part of our proof of concept. We've gone blown way beyond that. But with the conflicts of interest, Hitachi this year had initiated an involuntary disclosure of interest for the leaders of our organization. So we drew the line at director levels and above. And before we had Checkbox, before we had our conflicts of interest application, we simply didn't have the manpower to be able
mm,
to review, the 800. We had over 800 submissions in 2 months, and 85% of those were risk scored by Checkbox according to the criteria that we worked with the compliance team, such that we validated they were low enough risk and didn't require, I call it eyeballs, right? Didn't require any
mm,
kind of manual review. That is huge. We would not have been able
mm.
to do that in that kind of time frame prior to implementing Checkbox.
Yeah. Um, I've so many thoughts with what you just shared. One of them, though, you talked about NDAs as being a type of document, and you talked about how previously, when it was all templates and it was confusing, the business would just use the counterparty paper because it's just simpler. It's just easier. Just send me, and then that puts more load on your legal team, and there's longer review times, and it's not the best position because it's a counterparty position. I think one of the attendees today, Maria, just shared like a little, I don't know if it's, I think she's saying it a bit tongue in cheek with a bunch of smiley faces, which is tell the business about about the aspect of charging for certain legal services and turn legal into a revenue generating service. And I'm sure that would deter a lot of businesses from burning legal cycles. But I think what you're saying is with the templates, if you're gonna make it a lot more usable, more user friendly, then actually the business will adopt more of your first party paper, and that's not just an efficiency play. When you're talking about commercial teams leveraging NDAs to get into conversations that are driving top line growth, and you're able to shorten the cycle of legal review because of the great legal ops infrastructure you've laid out, you're not just making the business more efficient, you're making it faster, you're making it actually make money faster, right? So that's
Time to
a
signature, right? Like for revenue generating contracts, time to signature is important. If we're using our paper from our position, right, that are designed for the products and services that we sell,
mm,
then time to signature is going to be so much faster.
yeah.
And it is like, again, it comes back to that change management and training as well. But one of the metrics that when I first, so I've been at Hitachi for 9 years. I started as a team of one, legal ops, team of one. Now I have a team of five, including myself, around the globe. And one of the metrics that over this time I watched change was counterparty paper versus our paper usage. So when I first started, 80% of the time we were using counterparty paper, 20% of the time we were using our paper. That was very telling. Of
Mm,
course, that slows down the contract review and negotiation period, which slows down our time to signature. Well,
mm.
we really inverted that. So now we made it so I'm going to call it stupid easy
Okay.
for the business to be able to get their hands on our paper.
Yeah.
It's easier to do that. Like if you can get an NDA out the door in 2 minutes flat, instead of having
Mm,
to email the counterparty and wait and the back and forth, like we really have made it so stupid easy to be able to use our paper,
mm.
and it works. So
Yeah.
we've inversed that metric now, 80% of the time using our paper and only 20% of the time. And that's a true productivity gain for all those reasons you said, right? So
Mm,
now we're negotiating from a point that is our position and defending our position for our products and our services, which means we
mm.
can get to the finish line and get that document executed so much faster.
Yeah. But you already had a CLM, right? So walk me through for the
I do.
people, how do you think about that? Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, anything that's contracting related should just go into a CLM, but you've clearly created a tech stack where you have some of your contracting done in your intake and workflow tool. How do you think about what goes in what bucket?
Mhm. And honestly, it's a bit of a shift for us. So we've had a CLM, love our CLM. It's an AI powered CLM,
Mm,
um, and the power of the CLM really is in the repository and its ability to be able to um, assess the contracts.
mm,
Right? Truly assess the contracts. And I think for us, we see that as that's where we get the most value and that's where we leverage our CLM is like on that contract review and we integrate Checkbox. So in our proof of concept, it was no integration. Since then, we launched in August, but since then we're rapidly working on integration now so that it really is from an
mm,
end-to-end perspective. But a lot of CLMs, strong suits are not necessarily intake, they're clunky. A lot of
mm,
CLMs, their
mm,
workflows, their ability to be flexible and get it to the right party is not necessarily there. But the value of the CLM is absolutely priceless. Checkbox doesn't
mm.
replace our CLM, it supplements. They work hand in hand together.
Yeah, absolutely. Amber actually asked the question, are you leveraging a CLM or is this all through Checkbox? So I think we've answered that, Amber, but do let us know if there's another follow-up question there. Um, Diane also came up with a question. What is the biggest challenge faced by attorneys during the implementation of a new tool? This might be a good segue to talk a little bit about, change management and what you've done here, because by the way, for everyone listening today and Diane, Janine here didn't just push a button and get the tool out to people, right? You really built a brand around this product. And tell us a little bit about that. You didn't just call it a legal front door. You gave it a name and walk us through the adoption.
Yeah, I look, branding is so important for so many reasons. And for us who belong to a Japanese global conglomerate company, Hitachi,
Mm.
we chose the name Hikari. And actually, Harbour was the one who contributed to this, and it was
Oh,
huge.
nice.
So we had this like moment where Hikari, which is Japanese for light, and what we did was we took that branding, and it was so much more than a brand; it's a message. And the way we
Mm.
position Hikari is your legal guiding light, and
Love
that
that.
that is something that resonates with our employees. It's something that they can connect with. So, and I think about this as bookends. And you may
Mm.
have heard, I know, Evan, you've heard me speak about this before, but your branding is hand in hand with your vision. And one side of the bookend is getting that right. You want to make sure that you get your design and your branding in line with your vision. That is
Mm.
one side of the bookend. The other side is how do you get that message across and the change management? And that is not a one and done thing. That is something, I mean, in all honesty, to this day, we still apply change management with Hikari to make sure that people know that it's there. I think the biggest challenge for any technical implementation is the build it and they will come is a myth.
Mm.
And, there's plenty of technical graveyards out there where, it doesn't matter how elegant the solution is, how beautiful the solution is. If people don't know why they should be using that system, how to access that system, where to go. If you don't make that easy, then they're simply not going to adopt it. And that's something we continue to reinforce. And on that change management side, that other bookend, as much as possible, you've got to meet the business where they are.
Mm. Absolutely. When you say meet the business where they are, you mean um, trying to minimize the amount of disruption to how they already work? Is that kind of what you're referring to? What do you like? Expand on that a little bit for us.
Sure, I'll give you an example.
Uh-huh.
And this is on our integration roadmap. But the sales team, where do they hang? They hang in their
Salesforce.
CRM system.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
CRM.
They hang in Salesforce. You
Mm,
want to surface, you want to surface the contract generation and make it really easy for the salespeople so they don't have to go look and find either. Even though we have our vanity URL, I think that next level is meeting them where they are, and again, making it so easy for them to get that contract and
Yeah.
embedding it where they hang.
Love it. Love it. A lot of our customers, everyone's on different sort of platforms, but a lot of our customers that if they're in, let's say, Teams, then they embed a lot of the legal front door in Teams. Or if they're on Slack, how do you actually embed it within Slack, like natively, so that people could just message legal, as they always have. Or some people really operate off email. Like, how do you allow the business to still come to legal via email, but have the ability to turn the unstructured data into structured data and get the reporting and the routing and the right. And so, meet the business where they live or where they are is different for every business. It depends on how your business operates. And we've seen great success as you have in that concept. So I'm glad you shared that. Um, and then you talked a little bit about compliance for a little bit. Actually, you know what? I realized that I didn't exactly answer Diane's question, so I'm going to ask it again to you in case you have anything to add. We got sidetracked into the solution of branding and Hikari and the bookends. But she was asking you, what is the biggest challenge faced by the attorneys? Did you face any challenges with the attorneys specifically during implementation of Checkbox?
Yeah, and I think you really have to know your audience and understand what comprises your team. For us, our legal and compliance team, spans across multiple generations. We have digital natives
Mm,
who, they get it. They almost expect it, right?
yeah.
Because they've grown up with, at their fingertips, everything at their fingertips. Alexis and the Alexa and the likes. Um, so we have those folks, and they're great because they get it and like take to it like a duck to water. Then
Mm,
you've got, and I'm going to go to the other side, where they're the more seasoned, right? The much more traditional generation who have built their career through relationships, and that's how they achieved and climbed the ladder. And so for there, they're very, very much relationship based. And then you've got those in the middle. And I would put myself actually probably more towards in the middle. But we have both ends or all three spectrums there, and you need to
mm,
take a different approach with each of those audiences. And honestly, those more seasoned, more traditional folks, Hitachi is probably their last stint in the workforce. And so it's not as important to them to adopt the newer technologies and embrace AI as much
mm.
as it is those who are still, very much within their career. And having enabling technologies, understanding AI and how it contributes as another tool to getting their work done is what's going to make them relevant in the workplace, not just here at Hitachi, but also elsewhere. And you want
Mm,
to get that message out there in a way that doesn't threaten, which is why I spoke about reframing earlier.
yeah.
Like it, Hikari is not competing with you. Hikari is actually helping to protect your time so that you can focus on the important stuff, and Hikari can take more of that, administrative, more mundane type tasks that don't require your specialized expertise.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I say this to my team all the time as well. It's like the world outside is going to keep evolving and moving quickly, and it's not gonna wait for you. And so when change happens, within, let's say, Hitachi, it's not just happening in Hitachi, it's happening everywhere. And if you don't kind of get with where the world is moving from a technology perspective or the best in breed when it comes to operations, then as you then step into perhaps your next role, you're going to be behind. And so, this is as much about skills development and staying relevant in your career as it is, adopting technology. It's a really interesting way to definitely frame it, for the attorneys that, are on that different part of the spectrum, as you say. Um,
The other,
you, you,
the other thing I would say is tap into the influencers, those who are respected and open to change. Tap into those folks.
mm,
So don't take it all upon yourself within legal ops. You have to initiate it. But
yeah,
legal ops is a small department. So
Yeah.
you really have to find those and tap into those who do get it and those who can influence others. For us, we have a very regional and company model, for each of those subsidiaries. And you find those people who can influence. One last thing I want to say, Evan, is legal
Mm.
will always want to save face with the business. I mean, it's just inherent, I think, in the DNA of anyone within legal and compliance. And so
Mhm.
when the business love a tool, it
Yeah.
kind of drags legal and compliance along, if you will, on that
Yeah.
journey, but you can use it to your advantage.
Mm. Talking about attorneys as well and adopting the tool, I know that when we've talked about the legal front door, we've talked about it as a business facing outward, legal to the business type tool. But you did something pretty interesting. You built a second front door, if you will, that was actually for the legal team, right? You built like an internal legal hub. Tell us a little bit about that. Like that's not business facing, that's legal facing.
Yeah, we had that epiphany. So here we were building this beautiful legal front door for our customers, the business to be able to access. And we had this epiphany. And it was something that actually, I think, also made a huge difference to the legal team was building them a place so that they didn't have to have 50 million different bookmarks. We wanted to make it easy for legal and compliance to have all the tools that they needed at their fingertips in a secure place where only the legal team, and it's not just legal tools, like we have it connected in our internal legal hub, we have it connected to IT, we have it connected
Mm.
to a whole bunch of external systems, our expense, our travel, your benefits, your payroll. We really wanted to build
Wow.
that same concept for legal, and that became our internal legal hub. And actually, we launched that first. We did a soft launch with legal first, with the internal legal hub, followed by a soft launch with the business. And then we did one global big bang approach. We
Mm.
didn't do a phased approach after that.
Mm.
And I do think that that was tremendously valuable. We actually had an exercise that we gave legal to win, some, we call them Night on the Town awards. But it was, equivalent to a scavenger hunt, and we gave them activities to say, if you complete this scavenger hunt, this list of activities, then you qualify for a Night on the Town award. And that was it was amazing to
Cool.
me how people are motivated, like incredibly
Mm.
motivated by something like that.
It's very clear that change management is actually very it comes naturally to you because there's so many golden nuggets. In fact, someone just messaged the in the Q&A chat saying, "Well, they asked, will a transcript of today's recording be shared because there's so many golden nuggets here to basically help with stakeholder buy-in?" The answer is yes. We'll get everyone here a transcript of this, but like it comes so naturally to you, Janine, the way that you think about giving this product a name, the way you think about gamifying the adoption of tools, the way you think about your on the field change agents, and like I think the message here is it's not one thing, it's actually creating a swell of activity and discussions that guide people towards adopting the technology. I think like you have such a talent for it, and it's no wonder there's been such tremendous adoption of this front door you've deployed within Hitachi. Here's a question though that is related to adoption from Shana, which is a great question in the chat. She said, "How did your teams react to increased automation?" Okay, I'm going to add my little piece to it, which is brackets and AI. So, how did your teams react to increased automation, brackets and AI? And how did you build trust so that they didn't feel like they had to constantly re-review the outputs? And then at the same time, how did you define and communicate the non-negotiable areas where human judgment must remain? Such a great question. What's your answer?
Yeah, and I think you've really touched on a very important element, and you want to get that right also in your design. So when we were designing, we weren't trying to automate everything, right? There's very unique needs that are always going to require a subject matter expert, an attorney, employment law, privacy, and so on. And so we weren't trying to automate that at all. That wasn't what our goal was. But what we did do was partner with all of the various disciplines within legal to say to them, when requests come to you, something comes your way, what is it that you want to know? And let us help you work with the end user who's submitting that request so that you get all of that information up front in that first time, one touch point. You get the information that you need. So we're not replacing, if you will, but we're making it easier for you to have the information so that you know what to do and you know how to provide the right guidance, advice, or service. So that was one element. Don't automate everything, but pick the low-hanging fruit and automate those. With that, you remember we spoke about the scavenger hunt, that gamification.
Yeah.
We encouraged them to go out to all the AI agents and ask them the questions. So it was part of those activities because we wanted them to feel confident that the knowledge agents that we trained, right? They're just internally trained. They don't go out to the internet, right? They're private. We trained them. We trained them more than just giving them the answer to the question. We took it that next step to make it helpful and provide, here's what you need to do next, so that we could then guide them, to resolution, like take them through that next step. And that's why we initially did that soft launch to the internal legal team. We wanted them to kick the tires. In fact, I wanted them to come back and say, this did not give me the right answer. Like that, to me, I would embrace that because it meant that they took it seriously. And then we could have something that we could improve upon. And I think that, like, just doing that was imperative for the legal team to trust, because they don't trust. Inherently, they're risk adverse. And inherently, the power of the pen and the power of their advice, no system is ever going to replace that. And that's not what I was intending to do. But they had to have the comfort, or the system had to have the credibility, right? Earn that credibility so that they were comfortable to send their business to get those answers at, freeing them up so that they could spend their time on those harder, more legal specific areas of their job.
Yeah, incredible. Feedback, it means engagement, and the engagement that you're getting also builds buy-in and trust over time, because they're built into the process. That's part of actually good change management as well, is actually getting buy-in and ownership over what you're launching. So it's not a legal ops or GC project pushed down. It's everyone has a piece of the output of this new model of service delivery. Really, really good stuff. You touched a little bit on AI, and you shared a very profound statement. So I'm going to repeat it again. You said we built the AI, like the knowledge agents, the AI agents, not to just give an answer, but to get them to, but for them to be helpful, I think is what you said, right?
I did.
I think a lot of people in the world of ChatGPT and launching chatbots over the last 2 years get a little bit lost in the idea of just giving like answers to questions that are being asked. Like that's important. Obviously, people are coming for an answer, so they ask the question. But what you're saying is you don't want to just give the answer. The correct answer is not enough, because ultimately people want an outcome. And I think there's a very fine balance between giving a correct answer versus being helpful. And when you said that to me, I thought that was very profound. Like, give us an example. How do you go from just giving an answer to
Yeah.
being helpful?
Yeah. So one of our AI agents is like, who can approve what, right? Like if you're submitting maybe a contract, what approvals do you need? Or, just it doesn't matter what it is. Conflicts of interest. If you have a question, do I need to disclose? So we provided the answer, right, based upon our policies, our procedures, our guidelines. We trained the bot on giving the answer, but at the end of it, we always point them to the right direction. Here's your next steps. So the next step could be submit your conflicts of interest disclosure, or it could be reach out to your legal business partner, and then we have a who's who in the legal zoo so they know who their legal business partner is. It could be um, submit your contract for legal review. And we would give them the URL directly to that solution, that application, so that it is already workflowed, automating that.
Yeah. This is why I think it's so important to think in terms of workflows because when someone asks a question, to legal or to an AI nowadays, something must have happened before, or something needs to happen before they get to that question, and something most definitely almost needs to happen after the question is answered as well. And so, if you can help bring them to when they need to ask that question, and then you help them go to the next place after that question gets answered, then you're really solving like end-to-end business problems as opposed to just being a point in time, solution. So it's really fascinating the way you've described it in terms of thinking about the full workflow behind before and after the question.
We embed our AI agents in the workflow. So if you have a
Mm,
question as you're going through the workflow, we embed our AI agents, but we also direct our AI agents back to those workflows. We do it both ways.
yeah, amazing. That's super, super interesting. And these AI agents, you've built yourself as well on Checkbox, right? Like you didn't need to, I don't know, lean on IT to develop these. These,
No,
yeah.
oh no, it's actually super easy. Um,
Okay.
the hardest part was sometimes, in our case at Hitachi, the policies that are handed down from Hitachi Limited. Sometimes they need a little bit of let's make them a little more easy to understand, like
Mm,
digestible. What does this mean? Not just what the policy is, but what does this mean? And then we uploaded it as a Word document, and you can have multiple Word documents. But the AI agents, we left to last. When we did our implementation, we
yeah.
left the AI agents to last. But to me, they're like the icing on the cake.
I'm going to ask you the questions from the chat here. The first one here is from Amber. Amber asks, how long was it from signing on with Checkbox to that first launch and then that big bang launch right afterwards?
Sure. So we signed on with Checkbox right in the middle of the holiday period, and everyone was off. And we took that time to kind of get our ducks in a row just within the operations team first, so that once that holiday period was over, we could hit the ground running. So
Mm,
our proof of concept was 4 months, but to go live was six. And a lot of that 6 month, that extended time, some of it was tweaking, right? Like maybe some incremental improvements, but most of that time was really spent on those change management and adoption activities. I
mm,
cannot stress enough
mhm.
how, for any implementation, doesn't matter what it is, to be successful, the lever that measures that is adoption. And that's really where you've got
Mm,
to do a lot of that focus. So I think in terms of build time, probably 4 months, maybe 4 to 5 months, and then a good 2 months really making sure that we had that change management. And we spent
mm.
a lot of upfront time working on that design and vision. But that was, over the holiday period. It almost wasn't on the timeline, so to speak.
Yeah, wow. So including holidays, 6 months to go from sign to launch for 12 solutions for a pretty complicated legal organization for a global business. I mean, that's uh, again,
It
like,
was accelerated. I mean, I think that, just I'm so sorry to hone in on this, Evan, but empowering legal operations to run with it pays dividends,
mm, yeah,
because their ideas, like just their ideas that get sparked, and the fact that it's easy for them to be able to implement them, understanding, how to build, or having somebody internal to their team that understands the workflow that needs to be built instead of having to explain it to someone in IT
mm,
who doesn't understand legal processes. That is one of those secret sources that gets you, time to value so much faster.
yeah, absolutely. And I think as always, you got to have the right technology to put you in the best starting position, but ultimately it is also the people who are driving the project. So for those of you, I'm sure it is um, very clear from even this session the super house that Janine is, and I would encourage you to definitely take a lot out of this webinar and implement it as well in your practice. And finally, we always talk about process, right? You got to have the right people, process, technology to get to the right outcomes. With just a few minutes left, we've got one last question in the chat here. For Sana, she says, once the system is live, how do you govern the ongoing AI agent usage with legal teams to prevent automation creep, where increased trust gradually expands automation and AI?
Hmm. Say that again. I want to make sure I answer it the right way.
Yeah, I think this is kind of an interesting question of like, once people start to trust automation and AI, more and more will fall into that bucket. So how do we think about governing ongoing usage, which is growing all the time under these sort of automation and AI buckets? Sana, if I've butchered your question, do just clarify. But I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah. I mean, any system requires governance. I mean, any process requires governance. Um, and we, in legal operations, I mean, in some organizations, governance is a dirty word, but we embrace it
Mm,
in legal operations because that's how you maintain, I'm going to call it control or quality over what's being delivered.
mm,
We do ask for feedback. We ask for feedback all the time. We ask it from within legal, like, what else do you need? We also ask it from the business. Do you have any other suggestions? Because that helps us drive our roadmap for what we want to deliver next. I mean, we control
mm,
the agents. Very few people have access to build an agent or to educate an
mm,
agent. And even within legal, only the operations team have the ability today. Only the operations team have the ability to build a solution, to build a workflow, and that is also how we govern the solution and keep it as a quality product that we're
mm.
delivering. But over time, we may loosen that up a little. We'll see. We'll have
Yeah.
to see how that goes.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it comes down to access control for people that you trust can make the right decisions for what should be, in the automation AI bucket and what shouldn't be. And ultimately it's going to be an evolving piece as the world evolves, as your company culture evolves, as technology evolves. But ultimately having governance as a front of mind concern, as all of us would be, because we're all lawyers and legal ops people here. I'm sure we're thinking about risk and governance all the time. That's the same principle we apply to the technology. So appreciate that question, Sana. And guys, fantastic engagement throughout this webinar. Janine and I really appreciate it. With the last minute here, let's test our luck with the camera coming back on real quick, just so we can see you, Janine, and thank you. Some big news for Checkbox today, as Janine knows. If you've been on LinkedIn and seen the airwaves, you would have seen that Checkbox announced a big funding round just today. So super exciting for us. As part of that, we are offering a free engagement with our team to build your own AI legal agent, the kind of AI agents that Janine was talking about. So we're gonna try and create some bandwidth, create some workshops. So if you'd like to be engaged with that, if you didn't click the poll option, just email. Uh, I'm usually a bottleneck, but I can't think of anyone's email right now. You can email me, all right? And I'll try and redirect you as quickly as possible. My email is evan@checkbox.ai. Thanks, son. I appreciate the congratulations, and Carla as well. And with that, my friends, thank you for the great conversation. And please give confetti and love heart emojis in the chat as a react for Janine, who has just shared an incredible amount of experience, wisdom, and insight. Keep the love hearts going. Thank you, Janine. This was an incredibly useful conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people took a lot away from it.
It's my pleasure and a huge congratulations to you. I've loved our journey together, and the journey is not over. We're still
No.
building. It is far from over, my friend.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much. And to everyone else, enjoy the rest of your day as well. Take care.
Thank you.
See you next
Bye
time.
bye.